Right. Can you all hear me? Oh, yeah, I can hear me. That's a good start. Hello, welcome to our panel, the Data Governance Duel, striking a balance between enterprise and iterative approaches. So, my name is Nicola Ascombe. I'm known as the Data Governance Coach, and I won't do the whole spiel because I recognize some of you that were in the previous session. It's really great to be able to do a panel because the pressure's not on me. I get to ask the questions, which is brilliant. And I couldn't be more thrilled with my panelists. They're all people that I've loved working with in the past and just thought, what a wonderful trio to ask them difficult questions about data governance. And we're going to try and keep an eye on the time and leave enough time for you to ask you their questions as well. So we'll start off with brief introductions. We'll start with ladies first. We'll go with Danielle.
I'm Danielle Calabrese. I'm a director in Baringa Partners, so a management consultancy. Better? Yeah. Now I can hear myself. I've been working in data management for about 20 years, so I've had half of my career in industry, so in actually doing the role, and then the last 10 years here in the UK consulting for a number of different companies, cross-sector. So I've seen the data governance problem in quite a variety of places. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you. George.
Hi, everybody. I feel like I need to stand up. Hey. So I'm George Firikan. I am a data governance professional, but not only. You know, it feels so weird to talk about myself, and what I'm most proud of is really the people that I work with. Every single day, I work with amazing, amazing people, not just in data governance, but data management and data visualization, data analytics, BI, and they're all amazing, but data governance is really one of my passions. So that's what I do in free time. You know, I go on panels like these with these esteemed colleagues of mine and industry lead experts, and go on talks and do, you know, educational videos, have a co-host of the Lights on Data show, and so on, and so on. You know, check out Lights on Data. And I do have to say, you know, thank you so much to all of you for giving your time to be here, to learn, to network, to just share your experiences with one another. So thank you.
Thank you, George. And I've known Abel, well, feels like forever. We've known each other for a very, very long time. He's very experienced in all things data management, so I couldn't think of a final, better third person for the panel. So, Abel.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really good to have you, everyone here. I'm not going to flow what George has done at all, not at all. Abel Abo here. I'm passionate about data management. I'm passionate about the profession. So it's just a joy to be here today. So let's rock up and crack on.
Excellent. So, you can tell from the title we want to talk about the difference between enterprise and iterative approaches to data governance. So let's have a quick poll. Put up your hand if you're trying an enterprise approach to data governance. There's a few. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'll let you make your mind up later. And what about if you're doing an iterative approach to data governance? Ooh, even less hands for that one. And a lot of you, the rest of you undecided? Still trying to work it out? Well, hopefully we can give you some really good tips. Some of you may not have put your hands up because perhaps you don't know what the difference is. So I think that would make an excellent first question for Danielle. No, it's not. It's Abel.
No worries.
I should try reading rather than just remembering.
Absolutely.
Abel's going to explain the difference for us.
Well, firstly, that's a great question. And yes, if you are not sure about the difference, you're not alone at all. So the way I would describe it to people, I'll try as much as possible to keep it simple. Enterprise is large, it's big, everything. Iterative is pretty much small, right? I mean, some people might look at it from centralized or non-centralized as well, but that's not the case. Simply, if you want to tackle everything together, which I would advise you not to do with data governance, or you start small. And I think that's the difference. So it's about starting small and growing big, and that's the difference.
Excellent, thank you, Abel. So now perhaps we can move on to the more meaty questions, and I'm going to read so I can see who I'm going to ask it to. So, Danielle, why don't you start with this one, although boys, please chip in. Which of those two different data governance models do you think perhaps are the best in terms of scalability and flexibility for businesses of, you know, different sizes?
So the way I wanted to answer this question was, I have different factors, because I think it's not a one-size-fits-all. So there might be a reason to go enterprise, or there might be a reason to go iteratively. And some of them are on regulation, So if you've got a highly regulated industry, you're going to need to you've got a deadline, you're going to need to get all of your compliance in place by a certain time, and of course you're going to need the resources, the capacity, the money to do that, right? But if you're unregulated, then iteratively is probably a good option for you to start building value, start small, prove the value, and then move on from there. The other aspects are the size. So data governance takes a lot of change, right? So change management is quite hard. You're trying to prove to someone to do something that they don't, I'm going to say it, sometimes don't care about, right? So making it worthwhile for them. In a small organization, you've got a good opportunity to drive that change. So you could go big bang easily, and maybe for less cost. But if you've got a massive organization and you're not regulated, then you're going to need to start somewhere and prove that value and get people bought in. Leadership buy-in, also another factor. If they are bought in, you can get the money. If they're not bought in, you're going to have to fight for the money. And funding is always an issue. I think I've always come across clients not having the money to do this, or clients not having the money to buy tooling to actually make it real. That's probably a factor to stop it. And then data. So what kind of data are you working with? Are you working with standardized data, so customer that usually has like standardized tools to implement, or are you working with more unique sets of data that actually need a more bespoke solution to wrap governance around it? Those are all the kind of different factors. And then flexibility is across both of them. So you've really got to stay flexible. Data's changing every day. Priorities are changing every day for companies, so you can't really just like say we're going to get there and in 2 years' time get there. You've got to stay flexible, and that iterative approach will allow you to do that.
I think that's a great one as well. What I wanted to just add to that is about size as well. But not just size, it's about maturity as well, because that's really important. If you're dealing with a mature organization where you've got not just third generation CDO, you've got a third or fourth generation CDO, that's a totally different kettle of fish. So you've already baked in already like foundational stuff as well, right? But I think the size matters, but also the maturity of the organization does matter as well. So those are things I would really advise you to consider. So whichever you want to go.
Excellent. Anything
Love
else
it.
you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to mention, regardless of where you are in your career with the data governance, regardless if you are at that enterprise level that you want to tackle everything at once, or you're doing everything iteratively and maybe it's a little bit more manageable, I feel if you're like me, how I was 12, 13, 15 years ago, stepping into data governance, feels like you're boiling the ocean. Feels like that's what you're being asked to do. So if you're feeling that, you're not alone. But how do you boil the ocean? 1 cup at a time. It can be done.
Excellent, thank you. And I always love an analogy to help people remember. So that one's a great one. So, should we move on? And I think you touched on it a little bit about the maturity side of things, but we'll ask Abel this one. What's the cultural and organizational changes that you need to actually do to be able to successfully implement either approach?
That's a really great question. I always start with sponsorship. Sponsorship is a great thing. And when you think about that, you're talking about executive sponsor, great. But I think middle management sponsorship is really, really important because you cannot deliver any of those approaches without middle management support. So you need to start thinking about that. But more importantly as well, you've got to also think about, you mentioned about the data as well. What sort of data? And remember, everything we do in data management and data governance is about action and supporting the business to deliver. Okay, that could be a product, that could be services. So what is on the agenda? That really, really matters as well. So once you understand the business need, just for argument's sake, use the word the business need, that's really important. But also, how much do you have? It comes down to that as well. How much do you have? Are you fully resourced? You can't deliver data management enterprise when you've got one person. Is that possible? No. You've got to have the right resource as well, and that's really important. So those are the three high-level things I really want to talk about. But sponsorship is really great, but middle management can help you unlock it. But resourcing and cost is also important as well.
So actually, you're saying they're the same regardless of which approach
Absolutely,
you're taking?
yeah.
No, I agree. Anything you two want to?
Yeah, just that cultural aspect is so key, like you were mentioning, Abel. And where's Jordan Morrow? Yeah, there you go. It's all about data literacy as well. So I do feel that needs to be completely understood. You have to have that whole education within the company to understand why are we doing this? What does data governance mean to me? What's in it for me? Always dial into that radio station, WIIFM. what's in it for me. You need to make it relevant to the individual, you need to make it relevant to the unit, you need to make it relevant to the company, to the enterprise, all wide, and everything ties in together. It's not just about data governance, it's really about data, and it's not even about data, it's about the business. How do those two go together?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, you shouldn't be doing data governance for best practice or because George says so or I say so, or you should be doing it because you're going to deliver value for your organization. So I think that's such a key point. So I am going to ask George a difficult question now.
Sure.
So, you might still be undecided from what we've heard so far which approach might be best for you. So, George, what are the potential risks and pitfalls associated with each approach, and how can we mitigate against them?
Yeah, let's start enterprise-wide. I'll give you 3 things just to maybe make it a little bit more memorable. But the thing that comes in mind when you're tackling things at the enterprise level, it's really the resourcing aspect, right? You do need quite a bit of resources to put into it. You need to a lot of tools. You need to invest a lot. And sometimes that's something that's unavoidable. So things like in the financial sector, in the healthcare sector, where there's so many regulations that need to comply to, things just need to get done as soon as possible, right? Citibank, 2 years ago, they got fined about $400 million for a lack of data governance. Scott knows about it because he talked about it many times, and it's really what we sometimes use as an ROI. Hey, if you're not doing this, you could be fined for $100 million. That's a big number. As soon as they got hit with that fine, they poured a lot more money into it. Resource intensive, of course. You got to have the means to do that, but it does happen. So that's one. That's an issue that not all enterprises have the benefit of pouring all their money into data governance. That's one. The other one really is also about, like you were mentioning, the whole change management aspect. You're introducing a change that's enterprise-wide. I think that resistance to change will be so much greater, and you got to have those great change management strategies in place to mitigate all of that. You need to invest into communication, heavily communicate. You need to invest into training, and you also need to invest into some sort of a reward system. If somebody's doing something, reward them for doing so, right? Back to, I guess, one of the mitigation for the resource-intensive area. Sometimes, again, it's unavoidable, but where you can, try and split it into chunks. So ironically, the mitigation is to go in a more iterative fashion, right? Which is what we're also advocating for here at times. So yeah, those are the kind of the 2 things that I can think of. And of course, the third one is the complexity of it all. When you're doing things enterprise-wide, the complexity is so much greater, it can definitely be overwhelming. You're definitely like, on a raft in the middle of the ocean, fighting all the storms that are coming your way.
Yep.
And all you have is maybe like a cup of water in your hand to keep you hydrated, and just like a little paddle to try and get to the shore. And sometimes that seems like it's unattainable. So that's a difficult portion to be in.
Just listening to George saying what he said, let me be honest with you. Data governance is like a war zone. So if you're not ready, go look for something else to do, because it's not easy. Sometimes you cry, sometimes you get really frustrated as well. But I think it's really rewarding as well, because when people start talking about the success of that organization, your name will be mentioned as well. And sometimes the people that really get reward are not the people in the forefront. These are the people at the back end as well. So it's like a war zone. So I will encourage you to always talk at it. Just make sure that you've got the right command and the right strategy as well, and the right tactics, and definitely you're going to win the war. So I just wanted to make that point.
I like the analogy, but
Love
I
it.
think you have to also acknowledge that there are many battles on the way to win the war.
Absolutely.
So yeah, make sure you're battle ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was going to say, because I've seen a lot of places fail when they jump in without any of the weapons, if you're going to call it a war zone. But you're not giving any tooling, so you're telling you're a data owner, you're a data steward, and people are sitting there and like, well, what am I supposed to do now? And that's just because you haven't been ready, right? You're not laying the foundation and the building blocks to roll this out to the organization. So you're going to fail in that way. So no winning that war.
That's very true. So we had a meeting earlier to prepare for this, and we all decided that we all hate panels where we all just have a nice chat and you might have something you want to ask us. So that's all we've prepared for, and we want to spend the rest of the time answering your questions, or they'll answer your questions. This is the really good bit. So I hope somebody at the back's got a microphone and is listening, because otherwise we will never hear you. Yep. The lovely man at the back has got the microphone. So has anybody got a question they'd like to ask our lovely panelists? We have a gentleman right down the front. Sorry, can make you run the furthest possible. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about deciding between enterprise or iterative. Is there a possibility of having a hybrid approach? So say if taking the whole bite of the elephant or trying to eat the elephant
Sorry,
at
can
once.
you hold it closer? We're struggling to hear.
All right. So trying to eat the elephant all at once for enterprise data governance, can you start with certain verticals and try and get those fixed first, and then iterate from the iterative data governance back into the centralized enterprise data governance and build out from a central core? Is that a feasible solution?
I think, and so I think the place to focus on that, you can hear me, right? Is some of that data that you'll put under governance is going to be reusable, right? So in every place that it's reusable, you'll start to standardize. So it is a maturity question. You might start small, but you'll start to see the maturity grow because that governed data will then be reusable by loads of other business units, however you decide you want to slice it up. But I definitely think there's a hybrid approach. And some organization structures aren't conducive to an enterprise approach. So you might actually have to have they work, if some business units work like separate businesses within your organization, they're not all working towards the same goal, might be using different data, so an enterprise approach might not just work there. So you're going to need to like flex between the two.
I love that, and I actually like that approach that you're mentioning. And of course, it depends, as always, it depends on that culture, depends on the vision, the scope, the industry, the size of the organization. It all depends. But what I like to think about is, plan globally, act locally. And I think that approach can work a lot of times.
And again, I know you're talking about centralized and, none as well. Absolutely. You can flex it. You can deliver hybrid as well. But it's all about the organization. Never go out of the organization. I know data governance is all about change management as well. And who are you changing? You're changing the people, you're changing the processes. Obviously, you're not changing the product at all, but you're enhancing the product, right? And those are the real things that you can feel and touch. So you need to make sure that you're in step with the organization, the culture of the organization and all that. If not, what you're gonna get is that you definitely go ahead and then there's no one behind you. And that's unfortunate. So it's like Usain Bolt, you're running 100, but you're not competing with anyone. And that's not a race, obviously. You're just running your race, and that's it. And that's not what is advisable.
Excellent, thank you. Did that help? Excellent. Has anybody else got a question? The gentleman over there.
And while we're getting the microphone, I can share this quick story. This was from years ago. It comes from NASA. And maybe it was like 1999, 98. I guess year doesn't matter. It was quite a while ago before they had this enterprise level data governance program in place. And they were just treating it a little bit more locally. So each one of these units, they did have their data governance practices that were well built in. They were having all these different policies and standards that they were following. Things were working great up until they were having to combine some of these data, some of these processes. And what happened is these two different teams were working on calculations for the same goal, and that's to get this Mars orbiter, to reach Mars, orbit Mars. It never happened, they actually overshot it. But the reason why is one of the teams had the standards in the metric system, the other one in the imperial system. On their own, they were amazing, but when they were coming together at that enterprise level, things didn't jive.
Yeah, no, that's usually, I hadn't heard that one for a while. Thank you. Reminder. So, gentlemen, if you hold it really close so we can hear you.
My question, I guess, is on getting buy-in for data governance. what do you find the best way to get buy-in for a large organization into data governance, especially with the people, because it is change management focused?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Buying would always be there. Like I mentioned, executive sponsorship is great, right? But that's one aspect to it. I think for me, you've got to go back to the middle management, because that's where the operation, that's where the rubber hit the road, right? So it's good to get executive sponsor, but the middle management is really important. And in terms of demographics, so let's say you've got 8 executives, you would definitely have about 25 or 30 middle managers, right? Or more. If you can get those people to support you, you're successful already. Because the 8 people I just mentioned don't really do anything at all. What they do, they just sign a sick piece of paper to say, I'm going to give you the money, right? But the heavy lifting is pretty much in the middle managers. And not just the 25 or 30 odd people, it's the 100 people beneath those people that actually get to do the day-to-day job. So it's really, really important that you focus on those people. So one of the things you can do is to understand your stakeholder, analyze them, know what they need, and why they need what they need, and when to deliver it for them as well. So it's about knowing their needs and translating that into success, and that's really important.
Yeah, it's back to George's what's in it for them. And I think we're all, I know I was in the early days, many years ago now, guilty of bouncing into your office and going, we should do data governance because it's best practice and all our data will be perfect and we'll live happily ever after. And it wasn't a successful approach, so I do not recommend it. It's all about explaining the value to them. Anybody got into?
I find sometimes just the word governance gets an allergic reaction to employees. So it's kind of, I look at it like a balance, right? You want an objective to better manage your data, improve the quality, whatever you're looking to do. But you also want them to act, right? So they're in it, what's in it for them? But you also have to think to yourself, well, how am I going to make it easy for them? So how am I going to make this seamless? I'm not going to introduce, 20 more hours to their week or make it really, really hard to do something. So what are you going to do to make it easy for them? And I think on your point for the exec buy-in, I think what works nicely is if you've got a data quality issue that has really, really, like the money is, the business is losing money, or they've got some bad reputations where they failed a mission to Mars, take that and really do the analysis on that and say, we can save £5 million, whatever it is, by just improving this, right? And wrapping your arms around those issues and improving the value there. Yeah.
I love it. Just one thing I want to mention, so I agree with both of you, and just want to add to that I love having venting sessions with people from all sorts of areas of the business. I think it's first good to understand, the business itself. Don't talk to them about the data, just talk to them about what are their pain points. And then in the back of your mind, you can tie those pain points to how data governance can aid and can help. So later on, you can give those elevator pitches. You can tie it back to what Abel was mentioning and getting that support from the ground up. And at the same time, of course, you can tackle it from the top down too.
Can I just add quickly, and that's something I want to mention, please, and take this quite serious, is trust. No one buys from people that they don't trust. So if you're going to go to people to solve their problem, they need to trust you, that you're going to do what you say you do. So as part of the buying, you need to be someone that's credible. And credibility comes by demonstrating your argument, showing them that you've done this and showing them the result as well. Let the result speak for itself. So many times in the profession, we've got people that are not fully trained, not fully baked, promising and under-delivering. And that credibility actually affects so many people as well. So trust is so fundamental. So part of the buying is you've got to be someone that's trustworthy. What you say is what you get, and I think it's really important.
Yeah, deliver on it.
That spoke to my heart. And no, you're so on it. I completely agree, and I have to say that I think within data governance, as data governance, experts, professionals, I think you are stewarding that data, but you're also curating trust in general. And trust is one of those resources that it's limited. You're going to run out, right? You're just going to chip away out at it. and you're going to run out of it, and it's so hard to build it back up again. So getting that trust is so important, and maintaining it, it's even harder.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I
well
think
said.
that's, I often work with organizations that have had at least one failed attempt at data governance. And I always say, really try hard to make your first one successful, because if you fail at the first one, your second or your third ones get harder and harder because you've lost the trust. Data governance didn't work before, why will it work this time? I don't care that it wasn't you before, it doesn't work here. So, I think we've got time for one more question.
I have a change management related question because this is close to my heart. You mentioned sponsorship, which is very important. You mentioned the middle management, which we call coaches in change management, because we coach the people that are affected by the change. But I'm just very curious, who should be deciding whether it is an enterprise or an iterative approach? And should change management have a say in it?
No one should be deciding that at all. It has to be organic. That's my view. I mean, if you've got some organization, someone just needs to make the decision, right? But even with that, 9 out of 10 times, these are not people that do the work anyway. So why would you listen to them? I just said something about Gordon Brown. So Gordon Brown was the former prime minister, and he said, I was the former prime minister of United Kingdom, and just like everything, if I advise you, don't take my advice. Right? And it's true. Number one, prime minister, and he's saying don't take his advice. But that's true, because whoever decides 9 out of 10 times is not the one doing the job. So why would it? So I think it's about listening to people that really do the job, people that this thing is really affecting day in, day out. Those are the people you need to listen to, and those are the people that decision matters as well.
Yeah, I think that's true, because I've been told time and time again over the years that people don't like change being, change. But actually, I think people don't like change being done to them. I think they're much happier if they have a say in it, and this is why we need to do all the kind of what we're talking about, the stakeholder engagement, because we need them to tell us what they want, in what order, how big an approach we're going to do at any one time, not us. I think the one thing, and I think I said it in my presentation just now, so apologies if you were there and heard it before, but we have to remember, if you're responsible for doing data governance, we're not doing it. We're just supporting the organization doing it. So this is about us helping everybody else to do it. So it's about empowering them to make those decisions. I don't know if the rest of you agree.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Anything else, John?
Nothing
I
else,
think
Jen?
some organizations don't have good change management. So if you're in an organization that has a good team of change management, they should definitely be involved in landing those messages and landing the change with the organization. But not everyone does. So
Excellent, great question. So I think we're nearly out of time. So there were just two things I wanted to tell you about. Something I don't have a slide for. Danielle and I and a few other friends run a data governance know-how networking group, and Veronica's in the team there, she's here. You're all very, very welcome to join, but that's for another time. But tonight at Big Data London, we're having a meet-up. We're in the Data Governance Theatre from 6 p.m, and there'll be pizza and beer. We're reliably informed, so fingers crossed they turned up. But if you want to come and just talk to other people in the situation with you and talk more data governance, or just vent about your frustrations with your stakeholders, anything goes. So that is really, really, you're very welcome. We'd love to see you there from 6. And I don't know if anybody remembered, the last data governance survey was 2017. I think things have moved on a little bit, and it wasn't hugely big. But Danielle and I have been working together for many, many months, it feels like now. Do you realize how hard it is to put together a comprehensive survey? But we would love as many responses as possible, because we know from sessions like this, it's only by sharing experiences and hearing from what other people have done that we can actually get some ideas of what might or might not work for us. So we would love you to spend a few minutes answering this survey, if you don't mind. If you don't have time to do it now, because you've probably got drinking and other people to meet, I get that, take a photo and perhaps do it for us at some point. It's open till the end of next week.
we might extend it.
We might extend it, because we've already got companies globally and across so many different sectors. If you join in and give us your email, we will send you the report, so you will get the insights that come from that. So I think that's everything. So thank you so much to the wonderful panel for showing your time and expertise.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming.